710 KRV TalkBack, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, home of the Iron Microphone, streaming live on KURV.com, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK, streaming live on government-free internet. We are here to educate. We are here not to preach to the choir, but to teach the choir how to sing. Because the problem is those who are on or say that they're on our side. Well, first of all, what is our side? Is our side the conservative side? What is a conservative? Well, that's a very interesting thought. What is a conservative? Those of you in the system of public education, you have this superficial way of looking at everything. Well, a conservative means nothing other than a preservation of the existing, of the traditional. That's all a conservative means. So in a communist country, a conservative is a communist. In a libertarian country, a conservative is a libertarian. And you're not going to hear that in any school that you're going to. And so you need to be able to define your terms and what something means before you can use those terms in an argument. In this country, we have been led to believe that we live in a constitutional republic. But what is a constitutional republic? Well, a republic is a form of representative government. And that means that those that are allowed to participate in the process can select a representative, and that representative will represent them in a legislative body. But who can vote? Who can select the representatives? We all think that we have universal suffrage. Well, of course we don't. I mean, we have an age limit, don't we? We have a limit that says you have to be 18 years of age to vote. At other times, we had limits. There was a sex restriction up until 1920, around 1920, 22, somewhere around there. Women were not allowed to vote. So you have to be a citizen to be allowed to vote. So the voting process is not as obvious as as they would make you believe. Should people who do not pay taxes be allowed to vote? Well, of course not. You don't pay taxes, and taxes are what pays the representatives. Then why should you have a say if you're not involved with paying the salaries of the representatives? So if you don't pay taxes, you should not be allowed to vote. We'd have a much better country. If you're in a nursing home, should you be allowed to vote? If you are institutionalized, should you be allowed to vote? How many people do vote in the United States? Well, we have 250 million potential voters, men and women, non-institutionalized, over the age of 18 and over. Now, those 250 million, how many voted in the last presidential election? Well, about 125 million. Well, that's interesting. That's not even half the population. So if half the population vote, and Mitt Romney got half and Barack Obama got half, more or less, that means the winner got 25% of the potential vote. Does getting 25% of the vote warrant being president of the United States? Well, I guess it does in our corrupt system of elections. Does winning an election mean that you have a mandate? Well, no, it does not. It just means that you are the representative. And what are the rules of your actions? Well, the rules of your actions are based upon what the Constitution says you're allowed to do. Therefore, you have a constitutional republic. You have representatives, but they are constrained by constitutional guidelines. Why is there a constitution? If men were angels, do you need a constitution? If men were honest, do you need a constitution? If men always did the right thing, would you need a constitution? Well, of course you wouldn't. On the other hand, men are not like that. Men are avaricious, greedy, gluttonous, wrathful, arrogant. They are sloth. They certainly are not angels. And so you have a framework of rules that says this is what you're allowed to do and this is what your functions are, and you cannot exceed your functions. In a country with the divine right of kings, the king makes the law. The king is the law by divine right, you see, selected by God. So God chooses King Louis, and then God decides that King Louis' son will be the next king, and that King Louis' grandson will be the next king after that. That's what God decided. If you don't believe it, ask King Louis. And if you don't agree, there's a guillotine ready for you. Now, does that make any sense? You have the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, King Charles, and their disgusting children. Prince Charles. What's the king's name? King whatever. And their disgusting children, over which the Western press fawns over because she got pregnant. Like that's worth fawning over. And people still believe in royalty. Brad Pitt, Jennifer Lopez, Barbara Streisand, they still believe in royalty. They still believe that there are people that are born superior to others, and they have a right to rule by some kind of God-given innate ability. So there are still kings and queens in this world. Here we are in the 21st century, we still have kings and queens. What a bunch of nonsense that is. So we have a constitutional republic, what we did, or we're supposed to have, but we don't. Because the Constitution has been torn asunder, ripped to shreds, and cast over the side. You have 100 aristocrats, minor aristocrats, called the Senate. And they think they are the aristocracy of the United States. You have a president, you have Barack Obama. He thinks he's king. And all those people put him in the office, want him to be king. Who elected Barack Obama president? The unemployed. The unemployed elected Barack Obama president. The people on welfare. The people who get government money. They're the ones who made Barack Obama president. People who work for a living, they have no representation. People who pay taxes have no representation. The parasites, they're well represented. And that's why Barack Obama is president. So the parasites would keep getting their largesse. Now, parasites are not necessarily those in poverty. Those in poverty get very little government money. They may get government benefits, but they get very little government money. But the money goes somewhere. It goes to the rich friends of government. And the money goes to government itself to aggrandize government. That's the only reason that taxes exist, to is aggrandize government. That's the only reason Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and food stamps exist, is so that the people will be dependent upon government and therefore always vote in for big government. Why do we need government? I don't need government. Why do you need government? Did government build your house? If they did, you're falling down and you must be on welfare. Did government buy your car? Build your car? Did government grow your food, or did government get your energy to heat your home or cool your home? Government make the clothes on your back? The government, the cocaine you're snorting, the government give you that? The marijuana you're smoking, did the government give you that? What does the government give you? Exactly. Why don't you think about it for a second? What does the government give you? Well, it gives you war, gives you mass murder, gives you genocide, creates criminal classes. The government gives you slavery. Well, let's think about it for a second. What's the biggest Most frequent crime in the United States, something to do with drugs. That which is associated with drugs, taking drugs, dealing with drugs, laundering drug money, etc. Why is dealing with drugs a crime? The government made it a crime, but only certain drugs. You can get prescription drugs all you want. You may not need them. You may use them for recreational purposes, but as long as they're legally prescribed, then you can take it. You want to take cocaine? No, that's illegal. But since when? Cocaine used to be put in Coca-Cola until at least 1910. That's what made Coke the real thing. You wonder why everybody got addicted to Coke. They know what they're doing. So they don't have, now you're addicted to sugar. Okay, so you have marijuana. Marijuana was legal until the 1970s. LSD was legal until the 1970s. Why do I care if you're taking marijuana? I don't care. Do I care if you drink? Why do I care if you take marijuana? Clearly, alcohol has been proven to be more deleterious to your health than cocaine, than marijuana, than many other illicit drugs. So you have this crime that was, so you have this artificially created crime system of drug dealing. It's all artificial. So much of what is called crime is just arbitrarily created by government. So the government makes it a crime, applies punishments, and builds prisons. And now you have a big industry. And then you have the Drug Enforcement Agency. I don't know how many billions of dollars a year that costs. You have the FBI. I don't know how many billions of dollars that costs. Okay, what other problems do we have? Well, we have all this terrorism issue. Well, why is that? The government created that. Oh, what? You don't think so? Well, we have American troops in 150 countries. How many countries invited them along? I don't think Saddam Hussein invited George Bush over for tea. George Bush is now drinking tea in Kennebunkport. He's got nothing to worry about. His sons and daughters aren't out there getting killed. No Bush got killed in any of these wars that they started. So he's gone having a good old time. Now his son is gone. He's having a good old time. We're stuck with it. We're stuck with what they did. And so would the United States be involved in any external conflagration if it wasn't for the United States government? Every time the United States is attacked, we asked for it. Pearl Harbor, we asked for it. We invited it. World Trade Center, we asked for it. We invited it. Why? As an excuse to go to war. Governments love going to war. It's like the best thing for them. What, you don't believe that? Why don't you look throughout all of history? All of these wars. Somebody's always instigating a war. World War I. It was a war between aristocrats, between aristocratic families. These, they're all like relatives of Queen Victoria, Bismarck, and all the rest. They're all related to each other. For them, it's just a game. So now a bunch of people get killed. It's a game, like a chess match, but better for them, because people actually get killed. You send people off to get killed and to kill other people. That's war. Only government does it. So we have problems in the Middle East. Who did that? We did it. We got ourselves involved. We overthrew the Iranian government. We went over there and propped up these dictators. We gave money to Arafat. We gave tanks to Egyptians. We gave airplanes to the Saudis. We went and saved Kuwait from Saddam Hussein. What for? What's so particular about Kuwait? Not a democracy. Racist country. Why did we send American troops to save Kuwait from Saddam Hussein? Why are we in Afghanistan? Why do we have troops in Germany? Why do we have troops in Japan? how many of you realize that it was, they had the movie The King's Speech. Very good movie. Colin Firth won an Oscar, I think. Very good movie. I liked it. A lot of fun. They kind of skipped over one little point. It was England and France that declared war on Germany. Adolf Hitler did not declare war on England and France, despite what the movie may have led you to believe. It was England and France that declared war on Germany. Then, when the Germans were kicking the hell out of England and France, the United States didn't care at all, did they? Because France fell in May or June of 1940. England was getting pulverized. 1940 would have lost if the Germans really wanted to beat them up. But they really didn't want to, because they were kind of allied with the fellow anti-Semites in England. The United States got involved in World War I when? December 1941. That's kind of interesting. Why a year and a half later? What was going on a year and a half later? What event was occurring in the fall and winter of 1941, which required the United States intervention into the conflict in Europe? Time's up. The Soviet Union was being pulverized by the Germans. And the Soviet Union, every one of Franklin Roosevelt's advisors were Soviet agents. Harry Hopkins, Harold Dexter White, Lachlan Curie. I'm forgetting some of the names now. Fred, who was the one who was convicted, the Soviet agent? The one that Whittaker Chambers pointed out. Very famous. Actually convicted of, I can't remember. Nixon was the one that got him. Thanks, Fred. Just look it up. Look it up. Whittaker Chambers got the guy. And Richard Nixon got him. And Alger Hiss. Alger Hiss and his brother, Soviet agents. The entire British intelligence service was taken over by Soviet agents. Guy Burgess, Kim Philby, Ken Cross. There was at least 5 of them. Cambridge 5. All Soviet agents. The United States was a Soviet country. Franklin Roosevelt was a communist. His wife was a communist. Both were anti-Semites, by the way, and racist aristocrats. I'm sure they taught you this in school, right? That Eleanor Roosevelt was an admitted anti-Semite and Franklin Roosevelt was an anti-Semite.
Not in my school, no.
No? And they taught you that all their advisors were Soviet agents. Remember that part?
That's new to us, too.
Oh, it is, huh? Well, okay. Let's take how can you say that? How can you say, Soviet? I mean, no, they were just misled. Let me ask you this. You had Germany had invaded and conquered a number of European countries, yes? And the United States went to liberate those countries. And we liberated Czechoslovakia. We liberated them by giving them to the Soviet Union. And then Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, East Germany, Austria, Hungary, we liberated them by handing them over, and Poland, we liberated them by handing them over to the Soviet Union.
Yeah, they were our allies then.
And we handed them over to the Soviet Union. Because that's that's what you do with people that you free. You hand them over to your ally to imprison. Isn't that what you do?
Yes.
And then we handed over China to Mao Zedong. Remember that? So the United States is either incompetently led or run by a bunch of communists.
Or very naive back then.
I'm not going to even respond to that level of ignorance. What do you mean naive? What are you talking about? We handed over
You didn't.
Eastern Europe to the Soviets.
But
we handed it
know,
over.
They did not know. You can't say that they didn't know that was going to happen. What was going to happen in the future?
The future was 1946.
Right, but so after we.
Okay, let me ask you this, Fred. Why were they handed over to anybody? Why were they not? I mean, okay. You've liberated Poland. You've liberated Germany. You've liberated Hungary. You've liberated Czechoslovakia. You've liberated Estonia, et cetera, right?
Yes.
Then why can't they be independent? Why do you hand them over to the Soviets? Even if you thought the Soviets were good guys. Let's just say you thought the Soviets were good guys. Let's just say, okay? And who in their right mind thought that Stalin was the good guy? Why would you say now you are in charge of Poland?
Because maybe they were one of the greater powers that had more an economic more backgrounds to help these countries out.
The Soviet Union was bankrupt. The only reason the Soviet Union even existed because the United States was funding them directly. In fact, it was the United States through war dollars that Harry Dexter White gave the Soviets the actual plates to print money called war dollars, which were backed up by the U.S. dollar.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know that.
No, Fred, let me say it again. The United States took war dollars, the plates. We gave, Harry Dexter White gave that to the Soviets. They printed that money in order to have the funding to pay for the subjugation of Poland and all the rest. Now, okay, Fred, let's say we're naive like you say.
Yes.
Okay, but by 1946, we knew what the Soviets were up to. Now, we went to war against Germany to free England and France and the Netherlands and whatever. Why didn't we go to war against the Soviet Union when they blockaded West Berlin? Why didn't we go to war against the Soviet Union? We did the same thing against Germany. Why didn't we go to war against the Soviet Union?
Because by then we were allies. So, and we, like I said, we gave them that part. Like, here you go, we'll take half of Germany.
We gave what right did we have to give a country to another country?
Well, we didn't. But back
you
then,
just said we did.
No, but we didn't have a right. But we did because hey, we just liberated this place. So
we liberated you. So now we're giving you back. Now we're going to give you to the Soviets.
Yes.
This makes sense to you?
Now it does not. But back then you didn't know what was going to happen. You have to have somebody competent enough to control these things.
Let me see. So you're saying that 500 years ago, if I took a country and gave it to somebody else, they did that because they didn't understand that there was something wrong. And you're saying that up until 1949 and a half, we felt it was perfectly acceptable for the United States, perfectly acceptable to take a country called Poland and say, Poland, you are now owned by the Soviet Union. And we said that was okay because we were so naive to think that that was acceptable. That's what you're saying?
Yes. Maybe we said, look, we'll take care of Europe. You guys, the Western bloc of Europe. You guys handle the Eastern bloc of Europe. Yes? Do you catch my drift there?
No, I don't. It makes no sense. You're saying, so you don't divide up the world between the two powers.
Right.
So the United States was as much as an imperial power as the Soviet Union, you're saying.
Not
so
necessarily.
We're not naive at all. We're just equally evil.
Not necessarily, because we didn't say, okay, now we control these. Now we control
but
France.
You said that. You said that.
I didn't say.
That.
I did say, look, we'll take care of these guys.
Yeah.
Supply them money or whatever.
When the mafia says we're going to take care of something, what do they mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
So, look, if you're playing devil's advocate, you better do a better job, okay? Because that's just mindless blather.
I'm just saying that
there's no justification for any country to take control of another country. There's no justification for it.
I understand that now. In the world we live in now, yes. But back then,
Are you saying the people back there had a different psychology than they have now?
Yes.
Why did we go to war at all?
We went to war because Japan attacked Pearl Harbor. That's why we went to war.
Why did Japan attack Pearl Harbor?
Because we were helping the English trade ships going back and forth in the channel.
You are aware that the United States put a naval embargo on Japan. Today, What would the United States do if the Soviet Union put a naval embargo on the United States? Is that an act of war?
Yes.
Okay, so the United States was the first one to make an act of war. Because we are the ones that put a naval embargo on oil and steel going into Japan.
Well, just because
That's an act of war, isn't it?
Yes.
So which act of war comes first? The one that happened first.
Okay, but why do we just didn't say, you know what? Hey, Japan, you guys aren't doing anything. We're just going to put a war embargo on you guys, okay?
Yeah, that's what they did.
No, by then, wasn't Japan already invading all these other smaller countries?
You mean like China?
Yeah.
And what do we care about China?
Well, we don't, but if we're...
Wait a second.
If we're supposed
wait
to
a
be
second. Wait a second. Wait a second. Germany attacked France 1940. Why didn't we do anything then?
Because we didn't want to be in a war. After World War I, we were like, we don't want to be in another
war. But a year later, it's okay.
Because that's when they attacked us.
No. I already told you, the United States, you said that the United States put the embargo because Japan was being nasty to other people, other countries. That's what you said.
Yes.
And I said, well, then why didn't we do something when Germany attacked France? Well,
okay, good point. Yeah, touche.
What do you mean touche? Touche gives a certain equality to our arguments. Put that other girl on instead of you. You know. Okay, 7th Carry, talking to Dr. Lawrence Gelman. Hold the air on microphone. I'm alone. I'm an island of sanity in a sea of mediocrity. Okay, we'll be back after this break. Well, 7 KRV, TalkBack, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, home there. Microphone, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK. And, all right, so much for that. Government shutdown. Good. Shut down the government. I mean, if tomorrow they said the mafia just shut down, who would cry about that? Well, we have a government which it makes the mafia look like a bunch of Girl Scouts. This government is responsible for more murder and more theft than any gangster outfit in the world by far. On a dollar-per-dollar basis, there is no more corrupt government that has ever existed in the world than the United States government. The United States government provides nothing. It is a parasite. It creates a system of dependency. It forces children to be indoctrinated into the system of public education, which for the most part yields, for those that manage to graduate, a bunch of drones who cannot think and who are unskilled and can do little more than be on welfare. Almost all what the government does is entitlements to different groups in order to make them dependent upon government. It makes its entitlement to the elderly is Medicare and Social Security. The entitlement to the younger, poor parasites is Medicaid and food stamps and other dispensations. So we have in this country, I don't know, probably half the population is parasites, if not more. Now, who else is parasites? Well, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch. The rich parasites, ones who, you just heard this idiot from Maine talk about medical supply taxes, right? That was the compromise. What kind of nonsense is that? The medical supply companies are making more money than ever. That's who you want to protect? Like Hillary Clinton wants to protect the pharmaceutical companies. They're making more than ever. How about protecting the physician that's getting their reimbursements slashed left and right? How about protecting the small business person that is being taxed to death and is being destroyed by unions? How about that? How about the American laborer? How about protecting the American laborer from the enslavement of United Auto Workers, the AFL-CIO, and the Teamsters? All right, we have a call here. Thane calling from Sharyland, 710 KRV. Thanks.
Yeah, how you doing?
Okay.
I was going to say, I was listening to you talk with Fred there, and, I understand Fred's points, actually. I think you're asking what was the act of war, what was the righteousness. I think it really wasn't, on some point I agree with you, I don't think there was any kind of righteousness to it, but the only way to get the American public to want a war is to have them have the other country throw the first punch. And so our people didn't consider, it doesn't make for good publicity to say, oh, it's an embargo. The American people were, isolationists. They didn't want to get involved.
So what's wrong with that?
And right, so what's wrong with that? Because, if you don't get involved, at some point you were going to either be Nazi or communist.
Why is that?
I think, well, because you have the Nazis working on nuclear technology, and we hadn't even started.
So?
So they were looking at nuclear weapons. So
well, the Chinese have nuclear weapons now.
Right, they do, but we're the ones that got it first.
So what?
Consider us more righteous, I guess, in some ways.
We're more righteous? Who? Us?
In some aspects.
What aspect?
I'm going to side with you in some of your arguments that you say that our Constitution is kind of based on some moral ideals.
Yeah.
And I will agree with that.
Okay.
What those moral ideals, I'll disagree. But the idea that our Constitution was based on moral ideals at least puts the strength of our nation as a more righteous power than the Bolsheviks or the Nazis. And so if you think, okay, the American public, they don't see this coming, but the American government did see it coming.
What did they see coming?
They see economic and physical power being generated in Asia and in Europe.
So? And
they understand that if they don't make things
what?
I guess leveraged, if they don't, I guess in our economy, sometimes the government forces things to be monopolies, or sometimes forces things to not be monopolies, I guess, in order to promote, like if you took the power to choose.org, right, for your energy, it's kind of deregulated so that way you can have more, I guess everybody's competing against each other, but they can't just drown each other out like by doing like a gas war or something like that. Like you can't.
Why not?
You can't just. All right, so Europe is kind of like that, but it's going to be monopolized by the Nazis.
What? Wait a second. Wait a minute. I don't understand what you're talking about. We have the communist Chinese that now enslave more people than the Nazis ever did by a factor of 10.
Absolutely, I agree. And
why don't we do something about that?
That was part of the consequence of splitting up.
Why don't we?
That was part of our deal with.
With who?
With Stalin.
That was our deal with Stalin?
Yeah, that was the consequence of the deal with Stalin. Like, I'm not saying that Stalin necessarily envisioned that, but that was because we made that deal with Stalin and say, okay, look, now that you helped us, we'll help you. We'll split the spoils of war. Blah blah blah.
This is our moral stance. We're gonna split up the world between our United States and Stalin. That's our morality.
That was at our time because we needed to take a time out and
a time out from what?
From millions and millions of American soldiers dead.
Millions. First of all, 400,000 soldiers were killed, so no millions and millions. So why? I don't understand. It was a war we instigated.
I guess that was like American soldiers, but millions of people died in the war.
Well, they died after the United States got in, and Stalin had killed 30 million of his own people long before, and then Mao Zedong killed 60 million after the war was over, right under our noses.
So the idea is, after we've already suffered those great losses.
We didn't suffer any great losses.
You're saying the American society in World War II did not suffer great losses? It
did not. We were essentially unscathed.
I think you'd be very, if you were to ask any surviving veterans, including my...
What are you talking about? The United States was not bombed. The United States was not bombed. It is well recognized.
I think they would disagree with you.
I don't care about their disagreement. It's well recognized that the United States was essentially unscathed from World War II, essentially unscathed. No invasion on on United States soil. No bombing on United States soil. All of Europe was bombed out. Japan was bombed out. 2 nuclear weapons. China was bombed out. I mean, yes, the 400,000 Americans were lost, but who caused that if not Roosevelt and Truman? I'm not quite sure what you're getting at. And then 60 million Chinese were slaughtered by Mao Zedong, then a country that we handed over to him. So I'm not quite sure. And that was our fault. We gave China to Mao. We gave China to the communists. We gave Eastern Europe to the communists. Nobody can doubt that.
China was still an American ally.
When?
Yeah, in World War II, China was still an American ally.
Yes, and afterwards we gave them over to the communists.
Right. We didn't give them over, but we basically...
We gave them... Mao Zedong used American weapons and American money.
Yeah, because we had it there from World War II. I mean, we basically just...
But we didn't give it to Chiang Kai-shek. We gave it to Mao Zedong.
We gave it to the people that were willing to fight against...
Against who?
The Japanese.
Mao Zedong did not fight the Japanese, sir. Mao Zedong did not ever fight the Japanese.
You're right, but the people that were there in World War II had a lot of American equipment. It's not like that stuff gets logged in and shipped back when it's all said and done. It's not.
We gave it to them. We gave it to them.
Not to Mao. We didn't specifically.
Yes, we did. We physically gave in Manchuria. We gave Mao Zedong all of American weapons that were there. We gave it to him. The weapons. The weapons. You know how many most of the other weapons that were supposed to go over to Chiang Kai-shek were thrown into the water.
Mao took out our allies as they were the imperial rulers because they were very disparate in their...
Very what?
In their wealth. I mean, you had a lot of wealthy people. Basically, the Maoist revolution came about because there was enough people that were suffering. But
what are you talking about? The Maoist revolution came about because you had a communist dictator who slaughtered millions of people and took over.
Right.
I mean,
we didn't actually sanction that.
Not only did we sanction it, we did it. It could not have happened without the United States doing it. The United States did it on purpose. The same. Did we not give Poland and Czechoslovakia and Hungary and Latvia and Estonia and East Germany? Did we not hand that over to the Soviets?
Right, because we couldn't afford to fight for it.
We couldn't afford to fight for it.
Right, we couldn't.
We were giving the money. We funded the whole war. The Soviet Union only got the money because we gave them the money. What do you mean we could? We didn't have the money. And the Soviet Union, they had the money to fight for it, but we didn't?
No, they had the lives to fight for it.
They had the lives. We had our army. We didn't have a whole army sitting there.
No, not nearly. I mean, look what the Nazis ran up against.
What did they run up against?
They couldn't deal with it, and they had a better equipped army.
Who did?
They had a better fighting force.
Who did?
And they still lost against the Soviets.
They lost against the Soviets because the United States went into the war. If it hadn't been for the United States, Soviet Union would have fallen a long time before. Besides, who had the atomic bomb?
Exactly.
We did.
Who would have had the atomic bomb if we hadn't got involved?
Everybody's got it now. What's the difference?
Because we were willing to only use it a couple of times, and by the time we had a third one to go around, the Soviets had it.
That's not true. They didn't get it until 1956.
I mean, during the war, I should say.
Yes, they didn't get it. The Soviets never had the bomb during the war. They didn't get the bomb until 1956.
At the time that we were making the deal, as to how we were going to resolve the war being over and whether or not we were going to fight each other for the spoils.
Spoils?
We didn't have any. We didn't. Yeah, if you want to consider the countries and the oil and the resources, you want to consider those spoils of war. At that time, we didn't have a third bomb. We used both of our bombs. We bluffed the Japanese into surrender. We did not have a third bomb. So we couldn't afford for the Soviets to call that bluff. And so we had to have time. However, the Nazis, had we not got involved, were already in progress of developing nuclear weapons. That's, in fact, there was a Norwegian or Swedish, I forget, there was a northeastern covert ops team that took
So
out the heavy
what?
water. The heavy water.
So what?
production.
So what if? So I mean, so what? So what?
So if we don't have a nuclear weapon,
Well,
and the Nazis do have a nuclear weapon, and they don't have any sense of righteousness like we do.
and if they have robots and we don't have robots, they win. What are you talking about? We were way ahead of them from the beginning. They never even got close to making an atomic
we
bomb.
weren't. We were not way ahead of them from the
Oh,
beginning.
really?
They were
Then
way-
who?
the Panzers.
How did we end up? How did we end up first if we were not way ahead of them?
Because we were able to shut down their energy supply.
That's simply not true.
It is true.
It's
The
not
reason why
true.
They ran out of gas.
They ran out of gas? Okay, this call's over. Yeah, Thane. Good grief. What is that? I mean, talk about tangential thought. If we hadn't got the aliens first and they had gotten the aliens first and they would have had the death ray, and then what we would have done with the death ray, and we want to split the war. I mean, we couldn't afford to go. We ran out of money the day, right? We won the war and we ran out of money. All of a sudden, Eisenhower looked in his pocket and said, "I'm broke." What was that? We handed over Eastern Europe to the Soviets. We handed over China to the Soviets, and we were going to give the Soviets Japan, except MacArthur stopped them, which is why Truman hated. Truman was a communist. Franklin Roosevelt was a communist, and Truman was going. We were going to hand over Japan to the Soviets, but MacArthur stopped it by himself with his army. He told the Soviets, "You set 1 foot in I forget the name of and we're going to blow your brains out." And one of the islands that the Soviets were claiming as their own. My God, there is no hope. You wonder why Barack Obama is president? You just heard it. There's no hope in this country. I mean, these tangential thoughts, no basis, no foundation, no facts whatsoever, all kinds of nonsense. Incredible, absolutely incredible. Because of all the millions of American lives that were lost. What millions of American lives were lost? I don't know. This is just such a waste of time sometimes. It's just amazing. No, it just cannot be. I don't know. It's very disheartening. And you say that's good radio.
But that's why you're here, because there's people out there who need to be educated the way.
Was it possible?
I was educated this morning.
Was it possible to educate this person?
He might actually sit back and listen.
It was not possible because he did you notice he go from one tangential thought to another, just just bouncing around here and there. And
but you got to think, Dr. Gelman. Hang on, let me put you in queue.
Why should I think? It doesn't work.
No, okay.
All right,
I'm listening to you, and you're saying all these things like, wait a minute, that's not what I was taught in school. What do you mean Roosevelt was a communist? He was one of the presidents. How could he be a communist?
What is Barack Obama not a communist or a fascist? All right, what is a communist? What is the philosophy of communism?
I need to look it up on Google.
Philosophy of communism is basically government owns everything. Government owns the means of production. Government owns all property. Everybody works for the government. Okay, what is a fascist? A fascist is government control over the economy. You still have a private sector, but the government still controls the means. Government still determines what happens. You do not have any freedom. Whatever you do, you have to be told by the government. Now, what freedom do you have, Fred? Okay, here's very simple. Don't pay taxes.
Can't do that.
Why?
Because it's the law. You have to pay taxes.
Oh. The law made by God.
No. Unfortunately, no.
Made by whom?
By the government.
By the government.
Yes.
Okay, so all governments take money from the people, right?
Yes.
That's how they stay in business.
Right.
And is it always legitimate? I mean, when Castro takes money from the people, was that legitimate?
No.
Okay. All right. But you're saying when our government takes money from the people, that's legitimate.
Yes.
Why?
Because you can't compare our government with the Cuban government.
Why not?
Because they're communists.
But they've all say the same thing. All right, why does the government need our money? Tell me, why does the government need our money? What does it do with it?
provides for
what?
roads and bridges.
Really?
Yes.
And there's no roads and bridges built with private monies?
There could be, but who's going to pay for that?
Who's paying for it now?
Well, we are.
Oh, thank you. Okay, where else does the money go? Tell me name something where the money goes.
Social Security.
Security. Okay.
Medicare.
Medicaid. Okay, stop.
Okay.
Medicare. Medicaid. Okay. So you're forced to pay for somebody else's health care.
Yes.
That's constitutional.
Is it in the Constitution? I'm not sure.
No.
Okay, it's not. See,
you're not allowed. So okay, Fred. Why do you have to be forced to do it?
Because it's the law. You have to.
That's not what I meant.
Oh.
Why do you have to be forced to do it?
Because if you don't, you pay a penalty.
Why, Fred? If you weren't forced to do it, would you do it?
If I would, no, I would not do it.
That's okay. Now you got the answer.
Okay.
Okay. Let me get multiple choice next time.
Please.
Okay.
Do.
Why do you belong to Social Security? Why?
Why? Because eventually, when I retire, I'll hope to have Social Security.
If you didn't have to belong to it, would you contribute to it?
No.
Oh, gosh darn it, Fred. You can't. Okay. You cannot be taught, apparently. All right. Well, let's whatever else. Let's talk about. Okay. New Jersey. There was a hurricane in New Jersey.
Yes.
All right. The government gave them $50 billion. The whole state of New Jersey isn't worth 50 cents, but they gave them $50 billion. That's your money, you know.
Yes.
If you were not forced to do it, would you do it?
No, I would donate with my own money, which I probably did.
Voluntarily, you do it.
Yes, voluntarily, correct.
Why doesn't the government give you the option to do it voluntarily? Because they know you wouldn't.
Right.
Okay. If these things are so worthwhile, if they are so worthwhile, why do you have to be forced to do it? Why? Why isn't it voluntary? If it's so worthwhile. Why would you want to argue?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't have an
Fred,
argument for you.
Why don't you take, okay, why are you forced to pay for some other person's children's education? Why? How many times I have to give you the same answer? It's always the same answer.
I don't have to.
But of course you have to.
Why?
You pay property taxes, don't you?
Yes.
What do you think the property taxes are for? What's wrong with you? I mean, do you voluntarily pay property taxes?
No.
If you were not forced to pay property taxes, would you?
No, I would not have to do that.
Okay, Fred, if I came to you and said, Fred, you need to pay property taxes to educate Fulanito's son.
Okay, how much do I pay?
Whatever I ask of you.
Okay, I can't pay.
Or you have the option not to pay. What are you going to do?
I'll rather not pay. I'll give him some money to help buy him some clothes and stuff, but I won't pay for it.
No. You have no option for that.
Oh, really? I have
Your
no
option? No, not for that. For education.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Would you do it?
No.
Don't. Yeah, right. I was going to say don't lie. Okay. Of course you wouldn't do it. Neither would I. You have an obligation to take care of somebody else's grandparents.
No.
Why are you paying for it now?
Because I have to.
Why do you have to?
Because it's the law. If I don't pay, they come after you.
It's the law, but what does it mean to have the law against you? What happens to you? It's not just the fact that it's the law, it's the repercussion, isn't it?
Right, yeah.
What is the repercussion if you don't pay your taxes?
Heftier fines and eventually jail time?
Yes.
Yes.
So you're not doing it voluntarily?
No, I'm not.
Okay. That only took 10 minutes. The fact of the matter is we live with a government that is corrupt. All right? The government subsidizes, Fred, your government subsidizes General Motors.
Yes, that was a bad idea.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have an option?
No.
The government subsidizes Goldman. Goldman Sachs lost $18 billion. The government gave them $18 billion. Would you have done that voluntarily?
No. If we had representatives who actually listen to the people they represent.
Oh, but you're wrong, Fred. They do. It's just that you think you are the people.
Yes.
They listen exactly to the representatives. Who are the representatives? Parasites.
Yeah.
In General Electric, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, all the rest. Okay? All those parasites. The big agricultural interests, like and they give them, and the HEB and all the others that get from food stamps, okay? Nobody with food stamps goes to HEB?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
I see.
Trust me, I'm there every weekend when I pay with my hard cash. Do you see everybody in front of me and back of me paying with their
How much are we spending now for, how many Americans now are on food stamps?
millions?
What country in the world is the largest rate, the greatest rate of obesity? What country in the world?
The U.S.
What country?
Mexico, but yeah, we're right there.
We're
like
number
two.
one.
Number two, probably.
Number two. How many people in Houston are on welfare?
I cannot give you. I don't.
What's the
live in
fattest
Houston.
city in the United States?
Is it Houston?
Yes.
Oh.
How many
have
people in
great food
Detroit? How many people in Detroit are on welfare? What percentage of the population?
Well, Detroit.
75%.
Yeah, a lot.
Okay. Let me ask you, Fred. Do you give a damn what happens to Detroit?
No.
You want your money going to Detroit?
No.
How about New York? You want your money going to New York?
No, they have a lot of money already.
You want your money going to California?
No, of course not. They have a lot of millionaires over there.
Right. You want your money for your family. You want your money for your family.
Yes, so I can decide what I do.
And who's taking away your money?
The government.
And where's it giving it to? People you don't know.
To California, to New Jersey.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the government. That's our government. Now are we getting the picture? Are we starting to get the picture what's going on here? Joe Biden spent $500,000 for one night in Paris. I hope she was worth it. And Joe Biden doesn't even care, and he like it was nothing. Michelle Obama is going to have a multi-million-dollar birthday party in January. She's already bringing in Beyonce, whatever her name is, Adele, and all these other, bring in Lady Gaga, bring in all the great talents of the United States. Miley Cyrus, exactly. Bring in Miley Cyrus. There's America for you. Let's look at American icons. Miley Cyrus, Madonna, Lady Gaga, 50 Cent, and 25 Cent, his younger brother. And who else? And Eminem. And let's look at American culture, welfare culture. Jay-Z, my personal favorite, and Kanye West. That's right. 20 seconds until what? Oh, man, I'm just getting rolling here. Okay, had to go to a break. 7 KRV, talk about Dr. Lawrence Gelman. And we're giving Fred an education, and it's a struggle. .710 KRV, TalkBack, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, home of the Iron Microphone, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK, streaming live on KURV.com. What else is there? Is that it? Okay. Indoctrination and brainwashing. Today you're taught the world is flat. Tomorrow you're taught the world is round. You think you're so smart because you think the world is flat, and you think you're so smart because you know the world is round. Well, how many of us can actually prove one or the other? You have history, human psychology. Human psychology doesn't change. Always the same. We have our desires and our fears, our envies and our jealousies. We express characteristics of gluttony, sloth, wrath, arrogance, greed. Doesn't change. Maybe 20 years ago, you went after you lusted after, what is it? You craved a hot dog, and now you want a donut. Who knows? Well, we don't change. And that is why we have a constitution. Our founding fathers realized that human beings do not change, and that those that go into politics have a proclivity to a certain psychology. Essentially, almost all of those who go into politics have one desire. And that is to control the lives of other people. And that's it. Now, maybe you want to control it for good, or what you consider to be good. But the underlying psychology doesn't change. And so the founding fathers have written the Constitution based on the philosophy of the Declaration of Independence. And what is the philosophy of the Declaration of Independence? That all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation upon such principles and organizing its power in such forms as to them shall seem most likely to preserve their safety and happiness. That is the philosophy. Constitution is an architecture of governance. It is divided up into articles, and those articles give certain authorities to three different branches of government. The legislative, Article 1, the executive, Article 2, the judiciary, Article 3. And the powers of each branch is specifically delineated within the Constitution. The power of making laws is the legislative branch. The power of executing those laws faithfully is that of the executive branch. The judiciary has nothing to do with the creation or the interpretation of laws. The judiciary can only determine whether an action is within or outside the law. That's all they can do. They cannot tell you whether the law is constitutional or legitimate. That is not their function, despite what everyone tells you in the media about the Supreme Court and the federal courts. The federal courts cannot determine the constitutionality of any law. They can only determine whether an action taken by a party is within the rules of the Constitution or not. That's all they can do. The president has executive power. The president cannot legislate. The president cannot do anything other than execute the laws legislated by the legislature. There is no such thing as a federal budget. The term budget does not exist in the Constitution. There is no federal budgetary process. Doesn't exist. Everything in the media is a lie. Doesn't exist. There's no such thing. The powers in the government essentially reside within the legislature, not the president, but with the legislature. Within the legislature, in Article 1, Section 8, are the powers, the enumerated powers of the legislative branch. Of those powers, 17 or so, more than half deal specifically with the national defense. The word education, the word health care, the words Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid are not in the Constitution. Therefore, the federal government has no authority whatsoever over education, health care, private industry. Nothing in the Constitution gives the federal government authority over private industry. Yet, you have the Environmental Protection Agency. Yet you have OSHA. Yet you have all the rest. That can go into a private business and dictate how much you have to pay your employees, what kind of computer system you must have, what kind of flooring material you must have, the hours of work that your people are allowed to work. They must, all of that, dictate, and how many of a certain race, how many of a certain gender in each position, how many hours of overtime, and all of that dictated by the government. Is that in the Constitution? No, it is not. Can the government require participation in a union? It cannot. That is not constitutional. The 10th Amendment says the delegation, those powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved for the states respectively or the people. What does that mean? One sentence. What does it mean? Every Bill of Rights is one sentence long. Lawyers can't make much money doing that. What does the 10th Amendment mean? The 10th Amendment means that whatever powers the federal government has at the writing of the Constitution are the only powers it can ever have. That the powers which are not specifically delegated by the Constitution to the United States government can never be taken by the United States government. And all new powers and all powers that are not existent in the Constitution that are given to the federal government and which are not denied to the states belong to the states and to the people and not to the federal government. The federal government has no authority or power to institute programs such as Medicaid, food stamps, anything like that. They have no authority to do so. The federal government has no authority to be involved in education. The federal government has no authority whatsoever to be involved in the private sector. Now, here's something for you. Let's look at the First Amendment. What does the First Amendment say? The First Amendment says, the Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or of the people to peaceably assemble or petition the government for redress of grievances. Does that mean that in my club, private club, I cannot make a racial slur? No, it does not. Because the Bill of Rights and the entire Constitution only deal with public affairs, not private affairs. The federal government is specifically prohibited from involving itself in private affairs. They cannot involve themselves in private affairs. The government cannot get involved in private contracts. The government has no business in anyone's private affair. The government cannot tell you whether you can drink or not, smoke marijuana or not, take cocaine or not, shoot opium or not. They cannot do that. The federal government has no authority constitutionally to apply a personal income tax. Cannot do so. It is against the Constitution. Yet they have done so. And they justify it by saying they created an amendment, the 16th Amendment, I think, or was it the 13th? 13th Amendment, which says that they can tax personal income. They cannot. The Constitution was written by man. Therefore, it can be destroyed by man. Laws are made by man. Natural laws are made by nature. We cannot change those. We can only try to understand them. But man-made laws are created because man can act in a volitional manner. Some of it considered good, some of it considered bad. In order for society to behave in a particular manner, the government creates laws in order to positively reinforce those behaviors which the government deals salutary, and to negatively reinforce those behaviors which the government feels are deleterious to society. That is what law is. And law can change with the wind. The law in every country is different. The law in every age is different, even in the same country. If laws were immutable, then you couldn't do that. But laws are malleable, and so you can. The Constitution is not malleable. Otherwise, what's the point? If you can change the Constitution, bend it to your will or bend it to the will of the government, what's the point? You need a fixed set of rules. The Constitution is not malleable. It is a fixed set of rules. What are those rules? The fixed set of rules of the Constitution are simply this: that the relative relationship between the government and the people cannot be changed. That the power of the government in relation to the people can never increase and can only decrease. That the power of the people in relation to the government can never decrease and can only increase. That is what the Constitution says. That is what the Declaration of Independence means. The people are free, and the government is to serve the people. The government is not to serve itself. Every other government in the world prior to the United States government was a government that took care of itself, took from the people to aggrandize itself, where the government was the law. The political class made the law, and there were no rules other than what the political class said. The United States, the founding fathers said, that's not the way it's going to be. It's going to be a rules that benefit the people, that the people would not be subjects of the government as existed under the British rule, that the government would be subject to the people. That's why the preamble says, we the people. Doesn't say, I the king. Doesn't say we the aristocracy. Doesn't say we the government. Doesn't say we the Senate. Doesn't say I the president. It says we the people, in order to form a more perfect union. That's what it says. To guarantee justice, to create the tranquility, to provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare. That's what the Constitution is all about. Provide for the common defense. I mean the defense of everybody, not just the rich and not just the poor, but to everybody. To promote the general welfare. Promote the general welfare. General welfare, which means the same for everybody. The bywords, the watchwords of the Constitution are equality and uniformity of action. That which is taken uniformly. That which is distributed uniformly. It doesn't say the poor get more. It doesn't say you take more from the rich. It's not what it says. Everybody pays the same. Everybody gets the same. No special interests. No right can exist which gives to some by taking from another. Because when you take from the other, what about that person's rights? Therefore, food is not a right, because somebody has to grow food. That takes energy. If it were a right, you get it regardless, food. But the only way to get food is to get it from somebody, to grow it yourself or get it from somebody else. Well, to take food from somebody else involuntarily is not a right. You have no right to food. You have no right to housing. You have no right to a car. You have a right to life. You have a right to free speech. But that doesn't mean that I have to give to sustain your life, or that I have to give for you to have free speech. Talk all you want. Don't force me to buy you a radio station. Eat all you want, but I'm not going to grow your food. But in our society, we're saying that one citizen is required to pay for another's food. One citizen is required, against their will, to pay for another's health care. one citizen is required to pay for another's parents or children or pregnancy or automobile or transportation or house. That's not a right. No right can take from me forcibly to give to another preferentially. There's no right to health care, but that's a product. Like there's no right to a television. There's no right to a television. There's no right to health care. Is there a right to free airline travel? Is there a right to a free car? Is there a right to free clothes? No, because somebody has to make it. Somebody has to build the airplane. Somebody has to fly the airplane. Someone has to put fuel into it. Someone has to make that clothes. Someone has to do it. What about that person's rights? No right exists which takes from one to give to another. And so therefore, all of this nonsense and entitlements are not entitlements at all. It is simply theft, plunder, government plunder. That's all it is. To enrich government and to create dependency and enslave. To enslave the producer and to enslave the recipient. The recipient is enslaved because without the government, the recipient gets nothing. Therefore, the recipient wants the government to remain powerful so the recipient can keep receiving goods. The producer has to allow his goods to be confiscated or he is thrown into jail or fined or penalized. Is that a free country? We talk about rights in this country. What rights? Go and smoke marijuana, see what happens. Go and take cocaine, see what happens. Don't pay your taxes, see what happens. Don't pay your property taxes, see what happens. Don't pay a sales tax, see what happens. See what happens to you in this land of the free. The people in communist Cuba today are wandering the streets as we are, driving cars as we do, buying food and eating as we do. Is it a free country? Of course not. It's not a free country at all. It's communist dictatorship. But as long as the people behave within the guidelines of the government, then they can function. Then nothing happens to them. But if they cross the rules of the government, they are thrown in jail, shot, whatever. Any different in the United States? No different. Maybe we have a broader range of flexibility. Maybe we're allowed to do more than in Cuba, but we're not free. We are, just because being allowed to do something doesn't mean you are free. It's like being on a longer leash. A dog on a longer leash is not free. He's just able to have more space to run around. But if somebody wants to pull that leash in, wants to increase your taxes, wants to take away more from you, wants to not allow you to eat certain things or go to certain places, you're not free. We're not free. By being allowed to move around in a cell doesn't allow us to be free. Try to start up a business. All the regulations. Try to build a house. All the regulations. All the regulations that government forces upon us. And if we go along, then they'll allow us to do what we want to do. But that's not being free. All right, we have a call from Pete in McAllen. 7 KRV, thanks for calling.
Hey, Doc. I just got on here. The other side of this is keeping people from being allowed to practice their trade or to get into the marketplace. Barriers to entry is the fancy name for it. But it basically means that unless the politicians or some special in-group allow you to provide a good or service that you are perfectly capable of providing, and you try to do it, you will go to jail. And who does this benefit? This provides the current providers. One case in this thing is hair braiders. For some reason, the barbers and the cosmeticians or whoever, the beauty parlor folks, decided that hair braiders apparently needed to take all sorts of courses and cost thousands of dollars that had absolutely nothing to do with hair braiding. Another example is our airlines or trucking. We got rid of trucking, or we deregulated trucking in Texas, and at least 40,000 jobs were created in a very short period of time because the price of trucking went down. Another way where the, quote, providers feather their own nests is in medicine, where you have restricted numbers of seats in medical schools. It took 25, 30 years at least to get the medical school started down here. A Caribbean medical school wanted to put their last 2 years up here, but they needed to go to the legislature to get it. And that would mean more doctors in Texas. Well, apparently the doctors in Texas didn't want the competition, so no more doctors. The area development councils, such as the one down here, were originally designed to issue certificates of necessity and convenience. This is the magic words for
Right.
Started out.
Well, the point is, as you're saying, that we really do not live in a free society. All the blather of our of Barack Obama, our king, and all of his counts and dukes and the rest. The point is simply that we do not live in a free country.
No, and we haven't for a long time. The medical societies have restricted medical schools for over 100 years. You choke off the supply, the price is going to go up. You had the same thing with the airline industry and the railroads until it was killing them.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad you brought up the thing about the airline industry. The government took over regulation of the airline industry around the 1940s or 50s. If you look at these old movies like Airplane, disaster movies from the 1960s, early 70s, what you'll find, and I'm sure you've noticed, is there has been no improvement in the airlines for 50 years. None. It's exactly the same. If you look at what happened in the airlines before regulation from 1903 to 40, and all the advances, all the amazing advances, and then look at the stagnation. But just like you say, every time the government gets involved in anything, what do you get? Stagnation. Because it has to be, because government is just a bunch of lawyers, and all they know is what they know. No lawyer could ever invent a computer. No lawyer could ever, or a legislator or a politician could ever invent anything, because they can only move around the furniture that's in the room. They cannot build a bigger room.
You hit a nail on the head, and the reason they can do it is because they say that they're geniuses on their work, on their say-so.
That's exactly right. You must talk to these politicians, because you hit it at exactly right. There is no, look, as a physician, I deal with surgeons, and I thought I had encountered arrogance until, but the arrogance of your average politician, and it cannot be described. It cannot be described. All of you, anyone who's listening, think of the most arrogant person that you know. Anyone. Multiply that by 1,000,000, and that is your typical politician. There is no one in this world more arrogant than your average politician.
How about college professors?
I don't know about that. There are many who are arrogant, but others who are not. But universally, I mean, if arrogant, I mean, let's put it another way. Have you ever seen a more arrogant person than Barack Obama?
I think part of his arrogance is he realizes that he's an empty suit.
Well, you have a good point. There are those who will, in order to conceal an inferiority complex, they'll manifest, a superiority attitude. I do think Barack Obama knows that he's a middling intellect, really pretty stupid for the most part, and that. But then again, he does have this incredible narcissism. So it's. Well, here comes the music. Here comes the sun. Okay, we have to go. Thanks for the call, Pete. Thanks for calling. Been a while. Once more, regulatory requirements by the Federal Communications Commission, which is a bunch of fascists in Washington, D.C., have told Fred to give them a break or they will take this radio station off the air. Okay. Scott who? Scott, you're next. Okay, we're back, and Fred's still here. I have a website. The air got fresher. What happened? So, TalkBackOnline.com is my website. You can go to it. If I know people have other. Will you get that music off of this thing? Will you get that off of there? Because I know a lot of it is hard to digest because it is very erudite, and so therefore, no politician can understand. I can assure. You cannot believe. I wish I would record these conversations with politicians. They are so. They think they're so smart. They are so superficial. They understand nothing. TalkBackOnline.com is our website. If you don't hear the whole program, you want to, or if you want to write things down to send them off to the Gestapo, say, hey, there's this guy over here saying this, and you better keep an eye out for him. Or if it's not the Gestapo, if it's the KGB, whatever, just send them out to NSA. Well, they're already listening, right? The re-education camp. So if you have an interest in doing that, and what else? Oh, let me just go to Scott here while I'm ruminating because he's been hanging on. 7 KRV Scott, thanks for calling.
Oh yeah, you don't have to worry about any of that, Dr. Gelman. You definitely know President Obama's listening to your show on his way anywhere he's going on Air Force One. So. I'm sure he gets plenty of time to listen to your show. I'm sure the government already knows about it, the way they spy on everybody nowadays. But you talk earlier. You talking about freedom in this country. If you didn't think you were talking about the United States, you'd think you'd be talking about Cuba or China or North Korea. I mean, you forget about something too. Pretty soon, the IRS is going to get more into our business with this Obamacare because that's nothing more than a tax, and that's going to be a tax basically on the hard-working middle class again because most of the rich people in this country already have their private insurance companies or their companies they're working for have provided them with insurance. And once again, the middle class is going to be paying for the poor, and the poor are going to be getting it for very little money or for basically for free. And you look at all these people here in this country, I mean, everybody's on CHIPS or WIC or Lone Star Card or Disability or SSI or Medicaid or Obama Phone or paid electricity with government housing. In a lot of areas they get free transportation. And then you got, like, your politicians you just talked about. Here's a good one. Old Lucio, he passes this thing so that the kids get guaranteed free breakfast and lunch throughout the year in the public school systems here in Texas, which is, really good. And you look at the double dip they can get with the food bank and the Salvation Army and the Boys and Girls Club wanting money to feed them snacks. It's like, let them work out. We got some of the, here in the Rio Grande Valley, we have the most obese and the most diabetic society in Texas. And in Texas, we have the most obese, most diabetic state in the United States. And the United States has the most diabetic, most cancerous, and most overweight people in the whole world. I mean, I don't think there's too many people going hungry in this country. And as far as health care, I see that the poor people are getting health care as well as the rich people, and some middle class are the ones that are getting the royal shaft on the whole deal.
Well, yeah, you've got kind of hit it on the head. We've become really a nation of parasites, and I think that we somehow have the right to take the food that somebody else grows, or to right to health care, a service that someone else has to provide. But I do find it also interesting that you have these. I know they're on this program, and the KURV is always giving promotion time to the food bank. Isn't that a joke? You know, here we have the number one city as far as obesity, 35%. 35% in Hidalgo County are officially registered as obese. And you have to understand, in medical terminology, obesity is a diagnosis. It's a pathology. It's not you're a little bit overweight. That's not obesity. Obesity is you are so overweight that it has a negative effect on your health. And 35% of the people in Hidalgo County are categorized as obese. Now, what other statistic correlates with that? And that is we have a higher percentage of people on welfare in Hidalgo County than anywhere else in the United States. And what the other thing you're going to find is that, interestingly enough, in the area where most people are on welfare is where you have the most obesity. What a coincidence. And you ever heard that stupid commercial, 1 out of 7 Americans is starving? Oh, I'm the guy that stands next to you in the elevator, or I deliver your newspaper, all that. What a bunch of malarkey. No one in the United States is hungry. Well, except between breakfast and lunch. Starvation does not exist in the United States. It is complete baloney. You have this food bank, which is a joke, which all they want is money. They don't even want food. They want money. And then they spend all these millions of dollars on themselves. You have all of these Bill Clinton's PAN charity, which is a charity both for starving children of Europe and fat children of the United States. One thing you got to say about Bill Clinton, he's got his bases covered. You know, he's the only one in the world that has a charity for every possible thing. And he has a charity for being both too short and too tall, for being too thin and too fat, for being too rich and too poor. That guy is great. And he flies around on a private jet paid for through the charity, and he avoids having to be with Hillary. That guy's got all his bases covered.
Well, you know, Doctor, earlier in the show, they were talking about how the government wastes his money. You know, when he sent off $22 million to Morocco to teach them how to do pottery and blah, 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 on down the line with that. And you look at it, but those people that are running those organizations, or the money that's going there that's being spent, well, those people that are running that, they're big buddies and clonies with guys like Christie and Obama and Biden.
Speaking
and
of fat,
down the line. And what they do is they have these nonprofit organizations, or they have these big, or they supply the know-how, the people that they're paying for. They're making big bucks off of this, but what they've done to the politicians is they've gotten up so much money for their campaigns to get them elected that once it's like you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and that's where all our money's going. And the politicians are basically taking it out of our pockets while we're looking at them.
Chris Christie kisses Barack Obama's skinny butt, and the next thing you know, he's getting $50 billion because they got a little wet in New Jersey. You have what's his name, Brewer? From Arizona.
A bunch of condemned property.
Exactly right. Stuff that wasn't worth a penny to begin with. Then you have this Brewer, governor of Arizona. Talk about a whore. No, I don't believe in the Affordable Care Act, but if you can give me money, I'll sign anything. Right? And same thing with the guy Scott in Florida. Didn't he do the same thing? That crook from HCA. Wasn't he in jail? No, he wasn't. Everybody worked under him got in jail. Take him. That guy Scott was the head of CEO or something of HCA hospital chain when they were found out to be scamming the system, and everybody under him got thrown in jail. I guess he avoided it, but he's a bigger crook. That is why he's a politician. Okay, and it's just never ending. They're just a bunch, and it's exactly what you're saying. One hand shakes the other, one back massages the other. So all it is always the same. General Electric and their sweetheart deals. How many times can Goldman Sachs go bankrupt and be bailed out? That's at least 3 times in my lifetime. Now, I'm sure that
they were scamming in Florida the Medicare and Medicaid system so much, the politicians and the cronies over there, that the drug dealers were giving up on drugs and going over there to open up fake clinics and stuff and scamming off Medicare and Medicaid by looking to see what the big boys were doing.
Do you ever wonder why there's so much scamming in Medicare and Medicaid and not in the private sector? Because it's not their money. The idiot that they hired that sit behind the desk and write the checks in Medicaid and Medicare. I always wonder, like those guys that got in Houston that tens of millions of dollars of scooter chairs, which were paid for but never delivered. Now, if it was the government's money, that would never happen. But it's not. It's the other people. They don't care. They don't care about spending other people's money. It's irrelevant to them.
Well, doctor, they do the same thing with on disability too. You got people like 8 million people in this country holding disability. I mean, you got people on disability that can put a fence up on 3 acres of property, or go over to the Pacific coast and surf 20-foot waves. And in my book, if you do that, you're not disabled. But they're collecting it. But
there's
if
11
out the checks or the paperwork. They bring in the fancy lawyers, and everybody's making a buck off of it.
11 million Americans under the age of 65 that are collecting disability payments. There are 50 million people on Social Security, 12 million under the age of 65. There's 1.5 million Americans. There are 1.5 million children on Social Security. 1.5 million children on Social Security. The whole thing's a big. You wonder why Social Security is bankrupt? Is it because of all this scamming? And you're exactly right. You see those commercials on TV, Binder and Binder, that stupid guy with the cowboy hat. That guy's a crook. That Binder and Binder. Go ahead and sue me. I'm really worried. And their Social Security commercial, you have enough to worry about. Let us scam the taxpayer instead of you. You have enough to worry about fishing and hunting with your bad back. The entire
they'll figure it out and wait for that accumulation, and they'll go a couple of times with the judge, and then finally it's cleared up after 2 years, and all the back pay for those 2 years, they get a nice big percentage of it, and they get enough clientele, so they get pretty rich off of it every year.
You have judges which rubber stamp every disability claim. You have judges on the payroll of lawyers. You have judges that used to work in a law firm, and then they hear cases before their ex-partners. That's the system that we live in. This is a system that is made for the rich by taking from the middle class, using the poor as the excuse. No person on Medicaid has any money. No person on Medicare has money, or very few. They don't have money. That money, they never get a check. That money gets funneled to Pfizer and Glaxo and Boston Scientific, General Electric. Why is John Corzine not in jail? He embezzled $1.5 billion. Another Goldman Sachs guy. Paulson, another Goldman Sachs guy. Robert Rubin, another Goldman Sachs guy. If you wonder why it's called government Sachs. They lose $18 billion in a bad move. Government bails them out. You go bankrupt. You're forget it. But if you're a United Auto Workers or General Motors or Chrysler, and you're incompetent, well, then the government takes your dollars and my dollars and bails them out. You have New Orleans, which got billions of dollars a year to keep those dikes in order. That money was all stolen, and when Katrina comes, the dikes give way. That's all. That's it. That's what our government is. $50 billion to Chris Christie. I mean, that guy is disgusting, physically disgusting, and his friends are and if he wasn't a politician, he'd be on a reality show, right? He'd be on that Biggest Losers, right? I mean,
absolutely.
It's just it really just is me. And how about property taxes? They don't provide any service. I have some land at the island. There's no electricity. There's no sewage. I don't live out there. My kids don't go to public school anymore. I pay for it over here. And I'm paying this enormous property tax. Is that the American way? Meanwhile, you have these derelicts on welfare with 10 kids by the time they're 25, and I'm paying for their kids to go to school so they can learn out how to fill a Medicaid form or a form for public assistance. And those are people who, and that's why we have Barack Obama. Barack Obama is nothing but a welfare queen. That's all he is, just a welfare queen, or king, whatever you want to call it. Anything else, Scott?
Yeah, I got one more thing. I was watching the morning news. I think it was on Sunday, and boy, this guy really. I mean, he got under my skin. I mean, typical politician. The Treasury Secretary Jack Lew. What a clown!
He's new guy, right? He's new.
Oh my gosh! I mean, talking about kiss up to President Obama and kiss, 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 and kiss, kiss, kiss. He couldn't even answer a straight. He was just like the man you had on earlier. The guy you had on earlier. Problem is, I kind of think that maybe some of our public school education has gotten into the college education level, with maybe because of some of the educators. But his thesis with whatever he was trying to do was just beat around the bush and never really come out with a true answer. It was kind of like doing a book report and just putting a bunch of BS in it without reading the book.
Yeah.
And this is how the Jack Lew came about, exactly the same. I don't know if it's that generation coming up or what, but they're trained pretty well by the government.
Yeah. But that's what we're going to – well, who else is going to be there? I mean, but someone who's going to kiss Barack Obama's butt.
Well, if this guy's our Treasury Secretary, we're in probably pretty bad trouble here.
Oh, yeah. And who was before him? Timothy Geithner?
Yep.
Talk about why isn't that guy in jail? If we did what those guys did, we'd be in jail. Instead, they get what are these phone lines? Okay, thanks for calling, Scott. I appreciate it. And let's see what we got here. David calling from Weslaco. 7 KRV. Thanks for calling.
Hey, I was going to ask you, I heard that on September 1st, Pope signed up some papers dissolving corporations from being able to be sued or something like that. I just wanted to know if you heard about anything about that, and what does that mean for the United States?
Wait, I didn't. You got what was that question again?
I heard somewhere that September 1st, Pope had did some sort of letter resolving the big corporations from being able to be sued for wrongful doing, and that all goes into what you were talking about earlier about how we were actually all the wars that we went into were doing the embargoes and illegal stuff. So does this cover them, whatever the Pope wrote, or not?
Who wrote it? Who wrote it?
I heard it was a letter from the Pope.
The Pope?
It went,
the Pope?
Yes, sir.
Are you saying the Pope? Oh, I don't know anything. I really don't know what it is you're referring to. I'll look into it, but I can't answer because I haven't heard. I don't know anything about that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Now we have Joe in McAllen, 7 KRV. Thanks for calling. Hello, Joe.
Hey, Dr. Gelman, how are you, sir?
Okay.
This is Joe Castro. I'm sure you remember me. I
remember you. I know who you are. What's up?
Okay. How are you?
Okay.
Good. All right. I mean, I listen to your show every week, and everything. What would be the thing to do with all these people on welfare Medicaid?
Oh, well, very simple. You end those programs immediately. Okay.
Remove them?
Yes.
So what do you do with all the people that are on welfare Medicaid?
What do you want to do with them? I mean,
no.
Are you on welfare?
No.
Then why should they be? Why should they be on? Why should they be on welfare?
No, I understand. They shouldn't be on welfare, but let's say some of those females that their husbands left them, they have no, they didn't have a job, they don't have anything. What should they do?
I don't know. It's not my fault. I don't want.
No, I know it's not your fault, but I was asking what would be the response for them to do? I mean, here we're trying to
go to school, get a job. Go to school and get a job. How about that?
Oh, that'd be great.
Okay, well, there's my answer. That's my.
So, okay.
All right?
I mean, I wish it was that simple.
It is that simple. It is that simple. It's no harder than that at all, you know. Go out and get a job, you know.
Oh.
Anything else?
No, sir. Thank you very much.
Hey,
Appreciate it. Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks for calling. Okay, we have Daniel calling from Edinburgh. Thanks for calling.
Hello, Daniel.
Yes, go ahead.
Daniel.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, I just want to talk about abuse of the government system, Medicare, Medicaid, and all these things that Obamacare that are coming about.
Yeah.
I work in the medical field, and what do you think about the monopolizing of Doctors Hospital at Renaissance that has done with all these doctors that they are forced to send their patients to the hospital and to their...
Well, that's against the law. And besides, what monopoly? There's other hospitals, aren't there? Like Medical Center and Heart Hospital and regional hospitals. So I mean, monopoly means you're the only one.
You know that Doctors Hospital at Renaissance has most of the monopoly where they.
You can't have most of a monopoly. A monopoly means you have it all. Monopoly means you have everything. But so you cannot have most of a monopoly. A monopoly is a monopoly. But there are other hospitals, right? Pretty big hospitals around. Yes. Got a lot of patients.
Yes, they are. But most of the doctors are forced to send their patients to the hospital.
I don't know what you're talking about. If that were the case, then how come these other hospitals are open? If that were true. I mean, these other hospitals are open. I mean, if you go right now, there's plenty of patients in regional hospital, and Heart Hospital, and
I understand that, but you know that I don't even know where you work at. But
I work at Doctors Hospital, Chief.
Oh, you work at Doctors Hospital.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I'm one of the guys who made it.
You might know that a lot of doctors are forced to send their patients.
That's simply not true. That's against the law. You can't force a doctor to send a patient anywhere. That's against the law. What?
They're being forced and they're being sent, Dr. Gelman.
That's against the law.
And you know that.
But you know what? I can tell you something. I can tell you. If you can get evidence of that, then you've got a good case. So what I would recommend is if you have proof of that, I think the government would be very interested in hearing about it.
Everybody knows around the valley, Dr. Gelman, that
if you have proof of it, you have proof. If you have proof, you got proof. That's fine. Hey, go ahead. Get some proof. Get some proof. There's the Office of the Inspector General sitting right over there on Jackson and Pecan. Get your proof. Give it to those guys. I'm sure that they'll investigate it. So go ahead and do that. No worries. We don't want to have anything done that's not done. So if you have proof of it, well, let me tell you something. You don't got proof of it. You better watch what you say, Chief, because you can go to jail for saying stuff like that on the air without having proof. So, all right? So get your proof, and that's it. So now we have Zeke calling from Westaco, 7 KRV. Thanks for calling.
Hey, Dr. Gelman. I just want to make a quick comment. This past week, I went to get groceries at HEB with my son, the 6-year-old, and I'm trying to load up my groceries, and this guy comes up to me, and my son says, after he's gone, "What do you say, Dad?" And I said, "Well, he wants some money." And I was like, "Oh, he must be poor, or he must be hungry." And I told him, "You know what, sir? From anybody that comes up to you and asks for money, you don't start a fight, you don't do nothing, but you know that this person is just lazy and doesn't want to work. And they're not hungry because everybody here gets something for free in one way or another, and there's plenty of work out there." So
there's plenty of work.
We need to do that with our kids, is show them since they're little that, there's always work out there. You can make an honest living, and you don't have to be out there asking for money. And you can't go to Walmart, you can't go get gas, you can't go to any store without having somebody approach you and ask for some money, free money.
Yeah.
And you can't really tell them off, because then they'll scratch your car or whatever.
You're right about that.
I mean, everywhere you go around here, it's just crazy. Anywhere in the United States, you do that, and people are always coming up to you. And that's what the kind of generation we got right now, that everybody wants something for free.
Yeah, but there's nothing free, is there? So you have to earn your money. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
but, it's just a little observation that I have. And the thing is, we just need to educate and like what you're doing. And what the only thing I can do is educate my son and make sure he grows up good.
Okay. Yes, you're exactly right about that. That's all we can do. But let me tell you something. We're up against a big obstacle because the government is spending all of its time, and our system of public education is spending all of its time saying, you don't have to work. You can go on welfare. The government will take care of you. And if somebody's got money, it's because they stole it, and therefore you can take it from them. And that is what our children are being taught in the media, in the system of public education, and by our government. People like you and me, we have no representation. The parasites, they're well represented by our representatives and senators and presidents. And all the big crooks in Washington, D.C., and all the big lawyer crooks, and on General Electric and General Motors, they're all represented by politicians. You and I that work for a living, nobody represents us. We're on our own. Thanks for calling. And we're about a minute away. And that's exactly the situation we're in. Every honest, hardworking American is on his or her own. The parasites are in charge. We've elected the biggest parasite to ever lived, Barack Obama, except maybe his wife, Michelle Marie Antoinette Obama. And but then again, George Bush is a pretty good-sized parasite himself. Our political class is a bunch of parasites sucking the blood out of the nation. The United States is coming to an end. It was a great idea, but it is an idea that has been cast aside and been replaced by the fascist tyranny in which we live today. Our educational system does nothing other than promote that fascist tyranny, and all of our politicians do nothing but represent the parasites of this nation. And we're done. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being there. And we'll be back next week.